Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. These are not Trump decodes that we want to give you today. We want to give you a little update on what's going on in the news because it's just exploding all over the place. So, Thomas, let's get started by talking about a video that was removed from Truth News headlines this morning, but you were able to see it and can make comment on it. This is where Senator Lindsey Graham is questioning Brett Kavanaugh about military tribunals.
Yes, and he asks him point blank and then makes it very clear and then makes a grandstanding statement that the American public needs to know what you are about to say, basically so that the law can be told to everyone directly from a person who may have to consider this. Matter of fact, will have to consider this. He said, "Are you familiar with previous law that has to do with Americans whose rights are protected both in this country and in other countries?" And he goes through this, legal ramification.
Now, this is
questions.
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham asking Kavanaugh. And Kavanaugh agreed with everything that he said, right down to quoting the very cases that set the precedent. So in the end, Graham says, then you're saying that if someone acted against our government, even though they were a citizen of this country, and they worked with our enemies and foreign influence to affect the stability of our country and the national security of our country, then those people could be subject to not civil infractions, but military infractions. He says, yes, of course they could. There's two different bodies of law that rule that. And then they went into further discussion. Basically, Graham was saying that, and making it perfectly clear, that the people who created the Russian dossier committed a crime that can be held as a military crime, and that they could be held responsible for treason. And there have been precedents where people literally have been executed because of this treason. So he basically got Kavanaugh to say that the people involved with the type of thing that we're describing with the Russian dossier, and he all but said Russian dossier, he clearly defined all the parameters that the Russian dossier are creating, which is foreign influence connected to people in this country who are citizens of this country acting against our country.
Well, they're being actors for these foreigners to commit treason against the United States. But now, would we be looking as Hillary Clinton because she paid for the dossier?
Yes.
Would we be looking at Comey, who was pushing all these false narratives and the many crimes of him?
The 36 or so people part of the conspiracy, yes.
36. Can you name a few?
Well, that would be John Podesta, Donna Brazile, Monk, all the people of the DNC. Alexandra Chalupa would be evidence, but she's not. I do not necessarily know whether she is a citizen. But that whole group of the DNC. Now, who did they work with? Comey and his what we called his bunk buddies, which now most of those have quit or been demoted or moved or whatever. So that, Peter Strzok, William Priestap, James Baker, Comey, Andrew McCabe, the whole gang there, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, and then you have to get John Brennan, who was a principal part of this, and then you have to get Stephen Halper. Clapper has to go. Clapper has admitted point blank that he placed informants in the Trump campaign to spy on him because he thought Trump was inept and wouldn't understand the Russian threat. Okay, he admitted to the crimes on television. But that's the atmosphere we're in. We're in such a swampy atmosphere. You know that lake down in Florida that they have to drain every year, and this year it got
Okeechobee?
Yeah, it was so poisonous. They drained it out both sides of the state, and then it poisons everything that it gets near and mixes with the red tide, and all these things die. If you let that whole lake drain instead of just the overflow, what would happen? It almost killed Florida tourism in the recent times. So he has to slowly drain this swamp. It is so putrid. It is so toxic and poisonous. No one ever imagined that it was this bad. Well, we did, and we told you this long before everybody else did.
Oh, yes, we've been talking about military tribunals for a while, and I'll point everyone to go to the description box in the link, and I have some great little flyers that you can pass along in your social network that explain military tribunals.
Military-level security clearances all state that if you defy your agreements that you can be held as a war actor. That's the name they use now. So you can be held as a war actor, which means basically you're an enemy of the state, by simply violating your security clearance. So anyone who has a military level security clearance, top secret security clearance, could be basically held, not through a military tribunal, as I said before. That could be if they were previous military and they were still activated and blah, blah, blah. But no, you can try people for treason, and that's what Kavanaugh stated, and that's why Lindsey Graham made it so exact and specific, and that's why the film was taken down.
But why Lindsey Graham? Because, eventually that swamp stench is going to come right back to him. He's not clean.
He's never clean. He's trying to distract like everyone. Right now, they don't know Trump's battle plan, and they're losing on every front that they have attacked him. The reason they have lost is they do not have a battle plan. Because Valerie Jarrett and Obama and Eric Holder, in their bunker in Washington, gleaning the intelligence community's reports every day, because he still has access, all these people still have access, okay? They still have their clearances, and they still have the network, which is nothing more than basically, it's nothing more than an alternative server that's being sent the same information that's being sent to the White House, and it goes straight to Obama and his OFA, which he basically admits is a fascist, radical, far-left Democratic group that says get out on the streets and riot until somebody dies. And I'm not exaggerating. That is exactly what Loretta Lynch said. That is what Sharpton said. That is what Obama insinuated. He started the resistance. And now, in the news, what's really great is that Trump is pushing now against the basically the report that was put in the New York Times. Remember his friend, Mr. Richmond, who Comey claims was his lawyer, who wasn't his lawyer, and then literally claims later that he was on the payroll of the FBI. He just wasn't paid. But he was a high-level official now, wasn't he?
Well, what's that got to do with the
Daniel
New York
Richmond?
Times?
Daniel Richmond made all the leaks to the New York Times through Comey in an almost institutional fashion. So I suggest that this op-ed, that this stupid lie is nothing more than a Russian dossier. And because Trump and all his lawyers have looked into the illegality of these things, what New York Times has done is illegal unless now they release the information. They cannot use a false source, knowing it's a false source, to affect national security with a false report about things that are literally controlled under executive privilege. If this person is a high senior official in the White House and they talked to Trump and they revealed national security issues, which I didn't even read the article because I know it's garbage. It's going to be like reading the dossier. I couldn't get past the first sentence without laughing and putting it down and then having picking it up later because it is just so stupid. It's like a cartoon.
Well, it reminded me of that time that Comey was dying to write an op-ed piece for the New York Times. He was going to set the record straight, and the rest of us are going, what? You're going to write? You, the FBI director, going to write an op-ed piece for the New York Times? So when I looked at this, I thought, are we looking at the same channels? And that perhaps Comey is behind this?
Yes. In early 2016, Comey and a group of officials meeting in the White House with Obama, Biden, the whole gang, National Security, Susan Rice, the whole group, and they were sitting there talking about what they're going to do about the breach that they had discovered, which they had discovered long before. But the point is they were making a plan, and their plan was to basically run interference with the corruption of the Clintons and the Russians by creating a Russian collusion story they can pin on whoever the candidate is going to be. So they started all this opposition research. And if you go into the leaks, you will see that they had already done an incredibly expensive oppositional research on Donald Trump. I'm going to say things I said back then, right? And we're the only people who ever repeated these things.
In fact, I tell folks, if we are not reporting and sending you a YouTube, go back and look at some of our older ones. A year ago, we're reporting what they're just now getting around to reporting in the news.
And your team informs me that people write in their comments underneath these things, our broadcasts, that in fact they went back and checked it and said absolutely still 100% right. Why? Because we're telling you open source truth. We aren't making things up with imaginary fake people. So we suggest that Daniel Richmond, who was his leak to the New York Times, probably leaked something written by a group of people, but probably headed up as another James Comey treasonous crime, because this is treason, exactly as Trump has said. You cannot use a broadcasting network to preach sedition against a sitting president. That is called a George Soros color revolution. That is called a rogue CIA overthrow of a regime change. They did it in Ukraine twice in a row. John McCain was there. He received the highest award they have for his sedition there against their people, not his sedition, in his warmongering there. But they used $4.9 billion of our dollars to cause those two regime changes. Now it's in America.
Well, yes, because they practiced in other countries. People, we are not immune to this. George Soros and his group plan on taking us down.
But we, about 3 weeks ago, started yelling. And I would yell, but I've kind of taken a vow not to yell anymore. I don't want to look like certain people who are really out there being stooges. Because the truth doesn't, it should be yelled. It should be yelled from the housetops. But here's another thing. 3 weeks ago, we said, if you're in the FBI, if you're in the CIA, if you're in the State Department, if you're in the Justice Department, if you're in the NSA, and you aren't whistleblowing on your SES bosses, your senior executive service managers, who are Obama appointees, who are another 10,000 of his troops on the ground, if you aren't turning in your bosses through whistleblowing, you should go to jail.
And let me add that whistleblowing doesn't occur by doing a YouTube video with a hostess and stating we're the whistleblowers and, oh, by the way, if you have anything, send us your intel. This is a big decoy. So if you're a whistleblower, there are proper channels to go through.
What you're talking about is a decoy. We've busted one of them before, and they were closed down immediately before they collected much, and nothing ever got broadcast. But let's remember, everything broadcast, including this broadcast, is controlled by the Department of Defense Board of Broadcasting Governors. Until recently, when Trump simply took those paragraphs out of the National Defense Authorization Act. So they don't realize that he did this. We started at the same time we demanded that you whistleblowers come out and look at the whistleblowers who came out and gave us chapter and verse, the exact laws and violations of Robert Mueller when he recently, through a whistleblower report, anonymously and unverified as of yet, told General Flynn that he couldn't go to a Republican candidate's rally and support them, and threatened him with jail and another indictment. That is illegal according to this whistleblower and according to U.S. law. It represents like 5 major felonies, most of which have 10 to longer year terms for each offense. So Robert Mueller, if he really did this, has now gone too far. This is what we told you what we want to happen. This is what Trump is doing. He's letting them take their best shots. Then he just takes one step forward and gives them the haymaker. No one has stood it yet. He hasn't turned his ire and his power on Robert Mueller and the special counsel. And so those of you who believe that's part of a plan, it's part of a plan to let your enemy exhaust themselves. When they've exhausted themselves, all you need is one punch. It's like doing the knockout punch on a drunk. Really? It's a cheap shot.
Well, what else?
But that's what's happening. These people are exposing themselves like a cheap, angry drunk. And Trump just waits for them to stop and hammers them. He wants this special counsel to reveal every corrupt thing that Mueller has touched as Mueller tries to cover his trail and the trail of the Clintons and all the people that he has been beholden to. So the battle wages. The toxic waste slowly leaks into the ocean, where the ocean can diffuse almost all poisons, even nuclear. And then what's going to happen? Once they've all exposed themselves, many of them will leave because they can't stand an atmosphere of lawfulness.
No, because they'll be worried that the noose is getting tighter and tighter around their own necks.
Yes. So anyway, I drifted. I'm sorry.
Well, yes. Now, I have a big question I want to ask you before I get there. Is there anything else that you were looking at in the news in the last few days that you feel we need to rehash here?
Well, there's whistleblowers coming out in the FBI and in the Department of Justice every few days. And these are serious whistleblowers who actually state indictable information that can be verified. And so basically, they're giving us a case in the public domain to take down their active bosses, because basically what they're saying is their active bosses run agencies and do not really pay any attention to law. They feel they have complete immunity. They feel that they can do whatever they want, and they became completely weaponized by Obama and Hillary Clinton. I mean, if you can't indict Hillary Clinton, you didn't go to law school. Okay?
No, you're the enemy.
You are, well, and
it's basically
yes,
it.
I should add,
and that
you
includes,
are an enemy. You are complicit. You are part of the crime.
That includes Jeff Sessions.
Oh, Jeff Sessions, big part of the crime, and now that is coming out. There's been more whistleblowers about the Uranium One and Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions is 100% covering up CFIUS, exactly as we said. So many of the things that we have been saying are now coming out as whistleblower information from the inside out. Now, oftentimes you have to be careful. That could be the exact opposite. That's why if we're talking about whistleblowers, we say this is all speculation. No conclave member. They're looking at me like, no, dude, you don't get to say certain things because it's not the truth. You can speculate, but if you speculate, you better be pretty good at speculating because there's so much garbage out there. The newest garbage from the New York Times article I won't read because why would anybody read the New York Times? They are so corrupt. Let's not get into the billionaires in Mexico who are supporting them because of the election fraud money. Okay, let's look at Carlos Slim gave $100 million to the Clinton-Justra Sustainability Growth Fund as soon as the Uranium One deal went down. Okay, has anyone looked into that? No one has even said that besides us, except the fact that it's out there as public record. And Americans for Innovation. But besides that, nobody's talking about that. There's the bigger crime. You want to look, that's a continuing crime. Because his friend, Justra, has been enriched by all of this, and he basically might as well be Putin's best buddy at this point. And you couldn't get any closer than Bill Clinton and Putin. And yet they're accusing Trump, who would have loved to have gotten close to Putin, but couldn't. Putin actually said, why would I even be interested in one of 200 businessmen who are billionaires and insignificant to me as they come through my country? I don't know Donald Trump, and I didn't care to know Donald Trump. What more do we need to hear?
So a while back, when it was last year, people talking about the deep state and the shadow government, and we decided in the conclave that we needed to find out exactly what this group is, who this group is. And this is what led us to uncovering in detail with a searchable plum book this group called the Senior Executive Service. But another thing that was of interest to us is how do they communicate and control this vast network of the enemy? And that has led us to this thing called the Federal Bridges Certification Program. And in the link, you're going to see some information that we're compiling now. Now, we don't expect ordinary citizens and listeners to understand what this is, but this is very important, and you need to grab that link and send it through your network. Everybody out here needs to know how the swamp organizes itself. So, Thomas, can you explain in a way that everybody can understand what is this network?
Well, this network, we were tipped to the Federal Bridge Certification Authority by a certain website. Didn't give us a lot of information, and we put it on hold for about a year. And then some days ago, I started researching this with the conclave, and then Michael McKibben and his researchers and the Americans for Innovation researchers, we all got focused, and I begged them all, please, I'm tired of this. We just keep revealing deeper and deeper levels. We just need to finally hit the rock bottom. And I think,
or the center of the beast, the den of the devil.
The den
because
of the devil.
We need to know with laser precision what we can take out to destroy their network.
So we had earlier discovered that a group called Agilent headed by a man who had worked for Hewlett-Packard for years. His name is Richard C. Walker. I'm not even sure if he's anything more than a stooge. I think he is a stooge. But supposedly they developed a patent, which was an international patent on, I could give you all the technical things, but it really gets complicated. Let's just call it aggressive remote control of everything. Your bank account, your body, your car, every bus, every bike, every plane, every train, everything that moves. He had a patent, and they wrote this patent so that all other subsidiary patents that would feed into this patent would then be controlled by this patent. So Michael McKibben and his experts in patents came out and revealed to us the deep, dark secret that this was international. We don't know who has implemented it, but it is the ultimate Internet of Things. And all the patent plans are there for the future, literally. 5G, total control, automated cars, push a button, all cars stop, push another button, all planes stop.
This is the New World Order structure.
Yes. Now, I was oftentimes the person yelling the loudest, so that's the reason the conclave sometimes has to follow where I'm going. And I knew that this had to be something, but I'd researched it and come up against a blank wall. So I researched it again and came up with a company called Intrust. Again,
now that's spelled ENTRUST.
And to me, that was a blank wall. I couldn't get beyond it. Conclave members couldn't get beyond it. So we asked our friends, our researchers, especially Michael McKibben and Leader Technologies, S in the end, because he's got so many technologies. Right. All the things that the IBM Eclipse Foundation created, Instagram, Snapchat, single sign-ons, the YouTube, Facebook, anything, not only in social networking, but anything on a scalable level on the internet, he already has an operating plan for. Okay? That's why they have all that. So, the big plan was this plan we call Richard C. Walker's Internet of Things. It's actually called the FRNC. I don't even want to get into it. The name is so long.
Well, I'm trying not to keep this complicated.
Internet of Things.
Just
Okay,
keep
now,
it at the surface to explain to people why it's so important that we have white hats really looking at this and taking down the beast right in its gut.
So we knew by this patent that in the hub, there's one hub, and that hub goes out to other hubs, and those hubs go to the Department of Defense and all government agencies. They come through different hubs, but they all go to one central hub, and then that they go to all corporations, and then they go to anybody who ever signs on to the internet. You are actually paying for a service, and that service pays for the ability to have a digital handshake to assure that your IP address, who you are, is who you are, and that when you contact another site, it is who they are, so that you won't contact a site that then blows your computer up. It's called trust. And so they build this whole thing upon trust. So what we have found, again, is that it wasn't Big Brother had to push this out. Big Brother, a little committee, a little teensy tiny committee.
The CIO committee, council.
Which is all of the cabinet level of heads have one person who controls their IT, and that is their CIO, their Chief of Information Operations. They all sit on a committee with some other people, and they then they govern and supposedly have oversight, and they give charters out to companies like Intrust and a whole bunch of other companies like Intrust. But Intrust has practically 50% of control of all of this. Michael McKibben will explain it much better than I am, explaining very simply. Okay? So, what did you just say? You said the whole government gives charters to corporations who control every speck of information flow on the internet, in the government and in corporations in our private lives, and we pay a tax?
That sounds British. That sounds like a British network. That's the way they set their thing up. And also, these are rat lines. I want you to talk about that. And I feel that there's the blackmailing is going on through all these networks because they can control you totally.
In the hub, all information goes to the hub. Now, we know that's true with the Utah NSA Collection Center. But this is not the NSA. This is a corporation started in Canada as part of their federal government.
Canada?
In Canada and in America, so it probably goes back to the Queen. We haven't figured that out yet. But one thing's for sure, it then got turned into a company owned by one person, Tama Bravo.
Right.
It's an asset management company that manages $20 billion a year.
Well, here's another guy,
it's
Orlando
not managing
Bravo.
Money.
We've named the names of the people in there, and they're not going to be names you recognize. That's how hidden this is.
Everyone pays for a trust mechanism to make sure that you are getting certification that who you are contacting is who you think and who you are is who you are. But in the same process, it's just like the back doors they built into everything digital. They had to go someplace with this. And so the government basically sells out to corporations. Those corporations now reach into every aspect of government and control all the crypto keys, all the cryptological keys. All that you think is protecting you is not protected at all. It's controlled by corporations that you can't even find who owns those corporations, but they ain't the government.
And who owns Entrust?
We're looking into that. We've followed it back so far to an asset management company. That's what they do in the second phase of taking a monopoly and turning it into a very liquid form of dispersing that money to the evil ones.
And we suggest that the white hats out there that are listening go dig up that information before it's wiped clean on the internet.
Our researchers are researching it, but yes, we always, Betsy, through you and your team and Truth News Headlines, we get tip-offs. For instance, somebody tipped us off that Richard C. Walker is not a real person and tipped us off to what his real name is. It's like, what? Okay, we'll look into that. That person could be right. That person could lead us, he or she, on another whole trail. We hope, though, that what we have found is the ultimate toll bridge. That's the reason the word bridge is in there and the word ramp is in there. It's ramping up to go across a bridge to pay a toll to corporations for what they say is a free internet. The internet is not free. We, the people of America, paid over 40 to 45% of all the infrastructure for the internet, and we subsidize almost every company involved in the internet that is a monopoly. And this is another monopoly.
And then they turn around and weaponize it against us.
They collect, but they can target and attack, exactly as you said.
But here's the thing. You tell us this big, horrific problem. How, if you were sitting in the Oval Office, how would you take this thing out?
I would write $1 billion or more check to Leader Technologies and then force everyone below me as the president, through the Mueller Act, to justify the fact that it is obvious that his trade secrets of Leader Technology was stolen and dispersed between these fake Silicon Valley cardboard cutout evil demonic dragons. And you close the whole thing down by turning it inside out for a minute, making it a utility, cleaning it up, getting the mechanical engines off of all of the Intel microprocessing chips, getting China out of our business, stopping all 5G, turning it around and turning it back either to Leader Technologies, who already has systems to absorb and cover all of this, and or simply turn it into a utility, and then you're going to have to pay Leader Technology until the debt is paid off, because we have been ripped off by the theft of Leader Technologies to the tune of $3 to $5 trillion.
And when you say we, you're talking about
American people.
American people, because it was never designed to get into the hands of these thugs.
We paid for internet to be created. We have subsidized it. All the lines it runs on through Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, they're all subsidized by we the people, even the things that go overseas. It is a lie that the United States does not control the internet. That's why we gave away the ability to give out ICANN numbers, because that's a lie. Stephen Crocker, one person who was part of this cabal, gave out every IP address up until the time that Obama gave it away. And people do not go back to net neutrality. Why do you think all these companies are crashing? Because net neutrality was stopped. Net neutrality makes them have complete immunity from any lawfulness because they are a corporation. All they have to do is go bankrupt, and they're not responsible for anything. They can collude with the enemy. They're a corporation. They're international. They are. Facebook is working directly for the Atlantic Council, which is the #1 Russia-phobia machine, fueled by John McCain, who gave out the Russian names. So when he's talking about treason, there's the treason. They have to cover up John McCain's treason, which is now coming out. and Henry Kerner. And the whistleblowers go nowhere because John McCain's right-hand man, his hammer, Henry Kerner, is now not just running. He used to run the Senate Intelligence Committee and he caused the whole.
He keeps the whistleblowers from getting any further in their claims.
He's the head of the whistleblower office now. No one gets through. So thank you for those who are whistleblowing now and giving it to the alternative news so we can get it out. And then once it's out there,
I'm saying you have to be careful. If you want to be a legitimate whistleblower, you just can't do a YouTube video and spouse what you know.
No. A Daily Caller.
No, I'm talking about some of these
to.
videos that are popping up now encouraging you to be a whistleblower. Come call us. We've got a new website. Oh, and we have a special portal for the president. That kind of thing. You've got to be careful. These are decoys.
Yeah, no. Whistleblowers hopefully are too smart to fall for that. Give it over to reputable people and give it over anonymously, but give us the chapter and verse. Give us the laws that can take down a Robert Mueller. Thank you very much, whistleblowers from the FBI. Give us the material we need to take down the Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray is sitting on to 33,000 emails, folks. He's a criminal. We wanted to give you an update because as we do the Trump tweet decodes, sometimes we're missing the daily news on Truth News headlines. Never miss a day. Never miss a day. At least look at the article. You don't have to read it. At least look at it and see where it's going because there's nothing there that isn't creating the narrative of winning every single battle. MAGA is winning. It's already turned into Keep America Great in its second year of existence. And we're standing up for that because we see the results. So, folks, the battle is being won. They just got 235 indictments of these illegal people working with the senior executive services, $714 million in the last Inspector General audit. Things are going on behind the scenes to the U.S. Treasury. As we have told you, the enemy is being taken down, but they're not doing it before our eyes. Trump is not telegraphing his strategies of his warfare.
And you certainly know that the New York Times would never report it, even if it was happening on their front doorstep.
New York Times just committed a huge crime, and that crime can now, because they were so stupid, they went off script. Instead of following Avid, they tried to do an actual journalistic article, which they're so stupid they don't know that what they did is a huge national security violation. If they do not turn over the name of those people who have committed this national security, seditious, treasonous crime, everyone connected with it could be simply arrested, period. So everyone who it would have gone through could be arrested. They don't get it. They're playing with fire, and they are throwing out their last-ditch attempts. They're throwing everything at Trump on every single front that they can, and as far as I can tell, I haven't seen a single arrow hit him.